Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest is Dane Elcar, Dana Berger, and Max. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, so you got to pronounce it for me.
I thought that might be coming. Oh, Woertendyke. Max Woertendyke.
Oh, Woertendyke.
Hard to spell. You'll never forget it, though.
Woertendyke. All right. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate this.
Yeah, I watched Brightwood over at the Whorehound Film Festival. I mean, it was a pretty cool festival. A lot of great indie films from all over. Mm-hmm. Brightwood just blew my mind. I mean, it was like a slow burn, and then towards the middle and the end, it started getting really good. And I was a little confused a little bit. Kind of reminded me of like a time loop / alternate reality / gore. It was just a wild ride.
I mean, it sounds like you got it.
Yeah. It sounds like you got it. Yeah. I really, it is all of those things. Yes. And when there's a lot of, horror elements in it and sci-fi elements, I kind of just threw a lot of stuff in there. We had a lot of fun with that.
One of the things we talked about, like when the film was being developed and continues to grow, it's like in some ways it's a little genre agnostic. It's not just one thing. It is these different things, and I think to your point, it sort of starts in one kind of film, and really, hopefully, the tension builds, the pressure builds, and then you really get into this third act, which really takes, I think, a pretty wild turn. And I think, it sounds like you felt this way, slightly unexpected turn that really turns us into, brings us into some of the more traditional, I think, also horror elements.
Yeah, hopefully it shocks the shit out of you. Shocks you up a little bit. That was the goal. Yeah.
So, Dana, you and Max had great chemistry, on the screen. And you guys did your job because I was invested in you guys. You guys were like a, married couple, having your problems. And it felt like you really guys were really wanted to like tear each other's necks. It just felt so real.
Oh, good.
I mean, I hate Dana.
Yeah. We couldn't keep. I mean, they were yelling at each other the entire time. It was more like a documentary. But it's funny in terms of how we started. I wrote the script and then we rehearsed exactly like this, and we kind of workshopped the script and did everything. Yeah. So all of it was on Zoom because COVID was happening. So this is actually how Brightwood came about. Was on the Zoom.
Also, Dana can speak to this. Dana and I met working on a play in New York a number of years ago, and at the time,
I think it's 10 years. It's 10 years ago this summer.
I mean, wild. and at the time, we played a couple in Tumult as well.
Yeah.
So when Dane and I were talking about this project, and we were starting to think about who would be the perfect Jen, it really felt like a no-brainer to me. I was like. And I said to Dana was like, listen, I'm going to have to read her. I need to make sure she's like the right person. I was like, you do whatever you have to do. But before I say a single other name of a person that I think is worth reading, I think Dana's it. I think she's the woman for this role. And I think you guys would agree that she was.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked on the phone once and I was like, I think we got it. I think we can do this.
Well, the cool thing was that they reached out to me, like, I think December of 2020. The height of the pandemic, actors were not acting. I mean, not in person at least. And, a lot of Zoom theater and shit like that. And Max was like, you wouldn't want to like make a horror movie with me and my friend. Like, would you, like in the woods? And I was like, can we curse on this show?
Oh, hell yeah. This is my podcast. No.
I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Yes, please. Like, it was just like such a time when I think a lot of people were going through a lot, and I was dying to be creative. And I love Max and working with him so much. It was a dream come true. And I just said, absolutely. And so we workshopped this script, like Dane said, for months. Over Zoom, so that when we actually got to set in May of 2021, me and Max had a relationship like as friends for many years, but we had so grown the relationship between these characters through all of this rehearsal, which frankly, like for a lot of films, you don't get that much rehearsal.
No.
It's a lot of like show up on the day and rehearse a little bit, but we had been rehearsing for months, so the relationship was really there.
And this is also something I'll say about Dane as a writer and director, which I think was really awesome too, is that Dane was interested in sitting in the room with us while we rehearsed and figuring out like, okay, great, how, let's listen to the way these people talk to each other. Let's look at the way that they're interacting. And I think he took that data that we provided and then would go back and make, changes to the script in a way that by the time we got there, the words felt very natural coming out of our mouths, I think,
Yeah.
So I always say when things are written well and you have good teamwork, the work is easy. It comes quite naturally. You don't have to do gymnastics to try and sell a line, for instance,
Yeah, and I think that I had kind of had an instinct because I had done a short film version of this film in the woods in New Jersey as well, and I knew that we were going to be pressed for time. We were going to be on a tight schedule, and it just was important that when we were on set, we knew there was no questions about what the lines were. There was no conversation that needed to happen about where we were feeling. Everybody was go, go, go. We knew what we were doing. Because it's always a little risky. You're shooting outside. It was 13 or 14 days all outside. There was bugs everywhere. So
Dane got Lyme disease.
I did.
Thank God, after the shoot. he went to do pickups by himself and got Lyme disease.
I get to say my movie gave me Lyme, so that's
Oh my God. But also, we had a permit to film around this lake pond location, but that didn't mean that all the people that usually like go on their daily hikes and stuff around there
I know the ATV drivers, kids fishing.
Yeah, Robin, this is kind of fun. There was like a group of sort of young like teens who drove around a lot of ATVs and like their motorbikes. And for the first couple of days, we were like, what the fuck? Like, they're going to drive us nuts. And eventually we ended up stopping one of them and we were like, hey, dude, we're making this horror film. Like, can you guys help us out? And it was cool because they were all friends and they were all love horror film. They were excited that someone was making a movie in the neighborhood. And so they actually sort of not only communicated amongst themselves to help us with sound, but would sometimes come and sort of watch very, respectfully and quietly from the side. And we got to know them a little bit as well. So we got to like tell them about the process of filming. They got to see us film. And so we turned this thing that started out as like a real headache and ended up in a way they sort of became our like unofficial PAs in a way, because when other people would run down the trail, they'd be like, hey, turn the ATV down, man,
But it's kind of amazing because obviously part of the premise of the film is that there's nobody else there with me and Max around the pond, and so it's just kind of ridiculous that we had to create that vibe even though there were so many people on the trail every day.
There was definitely a couple of times where you probably both saw me run off, probably about to kill a kid, but I didn't. I didn't. So that's good. That's where we're at.
The community was really great, I'll say. Like everyone we met ultimately became like
I should say we filmed in Rockaway, New Jersey, at a place called Egbert Lake, and everyone around Green Pond Diner,
Green Pond Grill, the Hibernia Diner. They like invited us to come and eat, and were very supportive of the project. And it was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That lake you guys were filming around, it kind of reminded me of Creep Show, the little Creep Show vibe.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, the pond, like the little lake.
Uh-huh.
It gave me that Creep Show vibe. That was kind of cool. I thought the lake was kind of part of the character a little bit too. It was kind of like a creepy character.
So I had a lake that we were going to film at, and it fell through, and I discovered that lake. I discovered that I have incredible satellite, mapping skills, because I literally discovered that lake on Google Earth, Google Maps, and I was like, oh, there's a little lake. And then I grabbed my wife and my daughter and was like, we're going, we're going to check out this lake. And that's
Dane did spend a lot of time looking at aerial shots and looking for like any body of water that seemed to have a small island somewhere in the center, because the script demanded that she, if you watch the film, there's a certain point where she interacts with the lake in a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
And so we needed a body of land that was disconnected from the outside of the lake. And so Dane literally spent, I think, dozens of hours just staring, looking for little lakes with bodies of water. The first time Dan and I went out to scout that location, it was in the middle of winter.
Oh, it's snow everywhere. There was
the
first time I saw it, there were ice fishermen out there. And, I mean, I'm from California, so every time I see an ice fisherman, I'm like, what the fuck is that? They're in the middle of, But, that was the first. It was a series of, like, hopefully this will work out as the snow melts. Hopefully this will work out as the leaves slowly start to grow. And then it ended up being quite perfect, so.
Yeah, let's go and talk about
Sure.
Dana's character, man. She creeped me out, wearing that hoodie and all covered in blood, man. She looked like she was ready to attack anybody, especially on the trail, It's like, oh, please don't let no innocent, hiker be walking around during this whole, like, time loop thing, man. She was like hungry. It looked like she was getting ready to eat anything that came her way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And she was so good. Yeah, we have a sequence where she gets covered in blood.
Yeah.
That was of course very important to me, being in the horror genre. And she was a trooper. She fell in a couple of gut piles. And
did you know that Dane made all what are we calling them? Props? Like all.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
The prosthetics and stuff, and the makeup.
Really?
Dane made all of that himself. Yes.
Did, yeah.
That's amazing. Especially that little tent you had. It felt like you were watching the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. I love makeup. One of the things that really got me into horror when I was a kid, actually, was special effects makeup. So there are people that are obviously way better than me, but I always love the gore and the cuts and all of that.
I also think, like, in the nature of the film we were making, we wanted to capture it in camera. It felt important that we were dealing with effects practically. And that we were, making the film as practically and as in camera as possible because of the way that we had to make it and the kind of film that it is too, and the fact that it's so based on this relationship. So I think, that was, also a driving force. It was both practical, but I think thematic as well. It made sense to get those things live.
Absolutely. Get that real gore and real blood
and sometimes you only get one shot.
Especially Dana and Max in the film. You guys ran a lot. You guys must have had a good workout. It seemed like Dana was like a Olympic athlete. She was running like it was normal. And then you have Max. He's sitting there, trying to run. He's trying not to huff and puff.
Robin, that was all acting. Okay, I'm a great runner.
Well, I would like to say I would like to add that I also was filming this, and so when they're running, I'm running too. So we all
with a camera, holding a camera.
Robin, I will say there's one sequence in the film. It's where after something quite terrible happens, and Dan, my character, is running away quite fast and with intention. And at the time, I remember thinking, "Oh yeah, this is the moment where I'm going to run like my character really knows how to run because he's kind of pumped up and he's fighting for his life, and it's just like a different kind of thing." And the first time I saw that footage of myself running and I saw what I actually looked like and not what I had imagined, not looking like an Olympic athlete at all, I thought, oh God, man, you need to get back in shape.
Oh, see, I had the opposite experience. Well, but also it's funny because I was thinking, okay, we're going to be running around this pond the whole shoot. And so like I was kind of exercising and like really getting, I mean, I wouldn't say like I was terribly in shape, but I just was feeling like I needed to really be able to sustain a lot of running in a very, very long shoot days. But then, when we got in front of the camera, Dane would be like, you slower, please, just go slow.
Yeah, you would get up in the corner. You were so into it. You would start running, and then all we could hear on the sound was your heartbeat. And it was like, you need to just calm it all down a little bit.
Yeah, like my heart was like really.
And so we all shared a house up there too. So, we would start the day together. Yeah. Wake up together. Oftentimes Dane and Dane's assistant would sort of go to set, get things settled. Dana and I would sort of get into wardrobe and beginnings of hair and makeup at the house. We would drive to location, finish hair and makeup in the car, and then head to set. And, we would shoot for, some days were longer than others. We were outside, so we had like the strictest first AD on Earth, which is the sun. And, we'd shoot until we couldn't. And then we get back in the car, drive home, eat together, look at the schedule for the next day, and go to bed and then do it again the next day. Yeah. We just did that over and over again.
Yeah.
Especially for Dana and Max, they played, their doppelganger selves many different times. So, did you guys do a lot of preparation for it? Because you were playing your different selves, your alternate selves. Was that pretty hard, or was that pretty easy for you just to get right into it, as playing yourself but a different reality of yourself?
Well, I know that Max would definitely do kind of this thing.
I'll explain my thoughts. Thank you.
Well, just remember to describe it, because this is a podcast, guys.
That's true. That's true. Dee, do you want to go first?
Well, my question is, did you see differences between the doppelganger?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I've seen the different ones. They just had their different personalities. It started off it was mild. It's okay, it's just they're trying to figure out who they are. And every time I see the different doppelganger in that film, you just felt like the darkness of them kept on getting darker and darker and creepier, and almost demonic. That's what I was so invested in that, because each of the doppelgangers you're looking at, it's oh gosh, this is getting better because it's getting darker and creepier. So I'm waiting for the demonic, cannibalistic presence to come out. I was waiting for some, like a demonic creature that was, controlling the time loop and the different realities. I was this has to be going that way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that communicated. I think that when we were rehearsing, we were very careful about keeping track of, we called it Dan 1, Gen 1, Dan 2, Gen 2, of the different tracks basically, and where in the time loop each successive pair was. So I'm glad that communicated, because the further you went along into the, I don't know what you want to call it, doppelgangers, the longer they've been going around the pond and getting more and more, feral, or whatever you want to call it.
Simply if they've made it longer, it's mean they've outlived and survived other versions of themselves. And so essentially, the further in they are, the less socialized they can afford to be, because they have to survive in the wilderness.
Well, they know the game a little bit more, and they know what's going on. But also, things are getting harder for them. They've literally been out in the sun. They're hungry, so things are starting to degrade as well. The longer they're in this,
I will say that I think. So go ahead, Dana.
And also, as many people know, most films shoot out of sequence and out of order, and so really keeping track of which gen am I right now, because we weren't filming the film chronologically, was a challenge.
She's it was a challenge, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, there was, for instance, Dan, I had a couple tricks to help me. So, Dan 2's zipper is lower than Dan's one. I wear a blue sweatshirt in the film. And as Dane sort of demonstrated, Dan's 2 hair was better than Dan 1's hair. And so I built in these little tricks for myself, because just like Dana was saying, it's to know where you were and to be able to drop into those characters. And because we, had to work very quickly, and, it's not like we had trailers to go back and, 45 minutes to get into a different Dan. We'd be great, we shot that scene, we're moving on to the next one. So you sort of give yourself these little physiological cues. And so I would find literally that when I zipped my zipper up higher, I felt kind of like the way that I felt Dan 1 felt. And when I zipped a little bit lower, because I think of Dan 2 as thinking he's a little cooler. And, he just felt a little cooler. He felt a little sexier or whatever. Anyone who watches the film, you'll laugh if you think I thought either of those characters were sexy. But, and I think we found these little hints for ourselves, these little cues that helped us dip into who those people were. And I think it's in the writing also. The way Dan 2 speaks is a little different than Dan 1.
Yeah.
I think that's related to this idea that as they've experienced more time in the wilderness, against the elements, fighting both themselves and each other. They evolve. Yeah, the character, they evolve. They grow to become something other than what they start the film as, both as characters and as sort of, animal beings in a way,
Robin, when did you start to realize that there were doppelgangers?
Oh, when I started realizing that? Well, I started realizing it when you guys were running around, and you know how you see these mysterious people, with the hoods, which I didn't know it was the doppelgangers. And I started noticing that because every time you guys would go back to that same spot where the pond was with the no swimming sign, I knew there something like that was going to happen. And that's when you can kind of tell it was like a double, because, like I said, when I was watching, I kind of felt like a time loop. I go, okay, they're standing right here. This cannot, be them, because there's like a bunch of kill scenes where, Dan and his wife, were like killed like multiple times. And after I saw when Dana's character got killed, I was like, oh my gosh, I bet you anything there's going to be another doppelganger that's going to take her place and relive it all over again. And the next thing you see Dan's character getting murdered. I was like, oh crap, there's going to be another one. And you just know, after you guys died, I just knew there was going to be a alternate reality or stuff. That's when I started picking up after Dana's character was dead. I was like, no, they couldn't kill her. And I was like, wait, I bet you there's another double, or it's going to be like a time reverse where they repeat it all over again until they figure out what the hell's going on.
Dane talked about this, when he was talking about how he wanted the audience to feel. Yeah. And Dane always said, like, I want them to feel like the first time that Jen or Dan, bites the dust. Yeah. That the audience goes, whoa, what the fuck? We're already so far into the movie. Yeah. They can't be dead. They can't be dead.
I did.
So that's really exciting to hear, actually, that was, was in fact the way you responded to the film.
Oh, I did. And my favorite is, I like, Dane, how you shot the cinematography part towards the end. You see Dan just sitting there, just eating, himself, and then you see Dana's character. She's all bloodied up and like eating, getting ready, to eat some more. And I love how she like slowly lurks in a creepy, eerie way, and then slowly sits down, and how they both look at the lake. I love the panoramic shot, how you zoomed in on that, and it gave me like a creepy feeling in the pit of my stomach.
That feeling is called love. It's a love story, and this is my fucked up love story.
Robin, you want to know something cool? That's just cool about the edit. This is just to
okay, go ahead.
Give Dane a gold star editor, because Dane edited the film as well. He's a predator. He does it all. But we shot those close-ups of my character weeks before we did the actual shoot.
That's right.
Because I needed a big bushy beard, and I can grow a beard, but not that fast. And so we actually shot those shots of my face being covered in blood 2 or 3 weeks before
a month.
And this is also a point, where we shot in May. It was just a change of the seasons, and so one of the things that we were very nervous about was that were those shots going to match, because by the time we finished the shoot, there were so many more leaves on the trees than there were even when we began.
My nightmares 2 weeks, 3 weeks before this film was, please let leaves grow. Please, leaves grow. Please let there be green. So it was, but we shot that much earlier. Yeah, a lot of that had to happen, and I'm happy it all matched up.
Also, a fun doppelganger tidbit. The scene where we're crouched behind the tree watching.
Yeah,
when the Dans have to like fight each other, Dane is one of the dance.
Oh yeah, you get to watch me kind of throw out my back a little
He's
bit.
like,
I take out all my aggression on my director. I was like, Dane, you talked to me this way today, and now we're going to fight, and I'm going to take you out.
Yeah.
but I mean, it was so fun. Like, I kind of think of that as like one of the funniest days. Like, we were cracking up so hard, like with the two of you, like fighting each other, because you were really. There's no sound and there's no lines. It's just like far away. But like, they really tried to tell this like it's like fighting story. Like,
hey, that that was a cool fight scene, and I bet you Dane, he was probably imagining he was like Scott Adkins or Chuck Norris. It's like, I'm gonna take this guy out.
Yeah. I don't know how I think it very naturally occurred, but there was something about like, oh yeah, and then you get on and then I'm gonna spin you around.
yeah.
Dane's also definitely taller than me too. So if you look very carefully, you can see that one of the Dans is kind of trying to make himself look a little smaller. And the Dans is trying to make himself look a little bigger. Because we obviously we want to give the illusion that I really am fighting myself. There was also a couple scenes where one of us would run off camera one way, literally loop around Dane and the team, and then re-enter from the other side all in one take. So there would be these moments where you'd run off screen in a character, run behind people, zip the zipper to the appropriate level to be the different Dan, and then run back on from the other side of the frame. It was unbelievably fun to shoot. It was one of the best times I've had it in my adult life, to be perfectly frank.
No, truly, like 100%. I agree. But I also think, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this, Robin, because there are no right answers. But like, we found, like, I feel like the three of us thought there was so many funny things in the movie, like funny, like, but it's sort of like inside jokes for us. And I'm curious if, like, you found any of it funny.
I did. Especially when you guys played a married couple, all the picky things going, why do you want me? It's like, why do you want me to go out there first? And it's like, you're the man. You go out there. I'll stand here. Why are you pushing me? I just, there was a lot of funny jokes because when I was watching it, I was just busting up laughing. There was a lot of, smart, fun remarks, sense of humor and stuff. And I just love Dana. She played that Rose that is the picky wife, man. She was just like nitpicking him going, it's like, hey, you're the man. You should be doing this, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. She was definitely, I think, if only one of them was going to survive, I do think that Jen's characters, Gen 1 versus Dan 1, ironically, I think Gen 1 is probably a little better suited for to live in the wilderness than Dan 1.
Definitely. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, and
Oh, go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Well, we invented this whole backstory for these characters that obviously never gets talked about or shown on screen. Just to sort of make a history, an unspoken history there for us. And, like, we did some, like, Dane at one point gave us an iPhone and told us to, like, go walk around.
Don't give your actors an iPhone.
And said, like, film yourselves just improvising and freaking and walking around the pond. And Max and I had, like, way too much fun doing that. And I don't know, did any of that footage actually make it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty...
A little, a small fraction, probably 2% of it. There's a 15-minute take somewhere where Dana and I are arguing about things that are not in the film at all.
Totally have nothing to do with the movie,
Yeah.
All right.
I got to listen to it.
I know. You had some fun. So where can everybody find you guys on social media and get a chance to watch Brightwood?
Okay, so I've been preparing for this. I've been working with Dana. We've recently put together a TikTok for Brightwood, a Brightwood TikTok. I've only been on it for about 5 days, but I've now decided to devote my entire life to TikTok.
That's what happens.
I recently told my 6-year-old daughter that I'm probably not going to see her very much anymore. So if you want to learn more about TikTok or about Brightwood, you can visit our site on TikTok.
We also have an Instagram.
Wait a second. Which is Dane? What is the handle?
Brightwood Movie.
At Brightwood Movie.
Yes. See,
which is
I'm
also
learning.
Which is also what it is on Instagram.
Yes.
Right.
We have a couple festivals coming up, so there's opportunities to see the film. The first is coming up. We're part of Panic Fest, which we're super duper excited about. Mm-hmm. And that date is we're screening virtually there, April 14th through 23rd. And then we're playing live at Salem Horror, which is going to be at Cinema Salem. And we're screening on Friday, April 21st. We're waiting to hear an exact time there, but that is happening. We have news that we can't officially reveal yet about another festival that we're screening towards the end of the summer. And then we're going to officially be released late summer. We sold here in the U.S. and we're being distributed by an awesome company called Cinephobia Releasing. And the film will be coming out both digitally and on Blu-ray towards the end of the summer. We're thinking late August, but we're still waiting to nail down those exact dates.
But regarding Panic Fest, no matter where anybody who might be listening to this is, anybody can watch it because it's a virtual screening. So if you would like to see the movie, that's the first opportunity you'll get to see the movie, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and then one more quick question for Dana. Dana, how much fun did you have when you were on the Orange is New Black?
I had a fucking blast. I mean, obviously that show is pretty groundbreaking and legendary, and it's full of a lot of amazing, amazing actors, a lot of great women, and that set really validates people playing characters, and that's something that I really, really like doing. And so it was so nice to get to create a big character that was very different from myself.
That's pretty cool. And everybody, thank you so much for coming on and having fun with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for having us. This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you for watching, and this has been a blast.
And everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight.